Then all of a sudden, here comes the experts, Zionist experts, and these Muslims, these are jihadists. We were jihadists then. These were jihadists, and these are whoa, whoa. Say, look at them, what are they doing? Check them out. Changing the definition of the Islamic resistance. Because again, Iran fighting against a tyrant, a puppet, that people can relate to that. The Mujahideen in Afghanistan fighting against invasion from the Soviet Union. The people can relate to that. Hezbollah in Lebanon fighting against invasion. The people can relate to that. Hamas in Palestine fighting against invasion, occupation. The people can relate to that. We have to make the people think that the Islamic resistance has to do with Muslims going to Western cities and planting bombs in sensitive areas. That's the Islamic resistance. And then it took off on September 2001. So all of a sudden, the Islamic resistance became planes into buildings. That's okie doke, y'all. That's okie doke. They changed the definition of Islamic resistance, because who can relate to planes going into buildings? Who can relate to bombs in subways in major cities? Who can relate to that? No one can relate to that. Then all of a sudden, the rise of Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda is like everywhere. Yes. Afghanistan, Philippines, and so on. We're still trying to figure out who Al-Qaeda is. That's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? No, because we remember. We remember up in Oakland with the Black Panther Party in Oakland. All of a sudden, a new organization showed up. The Sudanese Liberation Army, the SLA. Remember Patty Hearst? She got kidnapped. And all of a sudden, the SLA showed up in Oakland, Black Panther territory. And the SLA is saying, you tell to the businessmen in grocery stores, you've got to give food to the poor. You've got to, nobody knows who the SLA was. See, when you have people who've been in the movement for 30, 40, and 50 years, and they don't know who certain groups are, that's a bad sign. So people will say, well, who's the SLA? This is Panther country. Who's the SLA? Nobody knows who the SLA was. And then the SLA starts taking, you know, attention away from the Black Panther Party. That was all about the SLA. SLA wasn't for real. SLA was a controlled fire. There are those of us who are thinking right now that Al-Qaeda seems like they are controlled fire. To take people away from the mainstream Islamic movement, the mainstream Islamic resistance. Where? Palestine, Hamas, Lebanon, Hezbollah, the Islamic Republic of Iran. These are some of the mainstream Islamic movement folks. The ones who the United States can't control. The ones who the United States wants to wipe out. It's not just them, but that's like the core, that's like the mainstream of the Islamic movement, the epicenter of the Islamic movement. There are Islamic movements all over the world, disconnected, but all over the world. But Al-Qaeda, I don't know. They use Al-Qaeda very conveniently, though. What happened? Al-Qaeda assassinated a Somalian Muslim leader in the Islamic movement in Somalia. Why'd you assassinate him? Al-Qaeda. He linked to Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda ain't in no daggone Somalia. There is an Islamic resistance in Somalia fighting against the invasion of the Ethiopian army, who, like, you know, America does outsource invasion. They had the Ethiopian government to invade Somalia on their behalf. Why? Because the warlords who the United States government were supporting, the corrupt ones, because that's all the United States support. They support the corrupt regimes, the most corrupt leaders. The warlords were overthrown by who? The Islamic movement, the Islamic revival. And you have to understand, y'all, America is threatened by this. The Israelis are threatened by this because they have never beaten us. Ever. As nationalists, they whooped our butts. As secularists, they whooped our butts. As Muslims, they have never beaten us. And so they know that their Achilles heel is us. And they know we come for them. Because Palestine is not an Arab issue. If it was an Arab issue, it would have been settled a long time ago. For us, it's an Islamic issue. It's a fight against Islam and Zionism, not Judaism. There's a difference between Judaism and Zionism. They will have you think that they're one and the same. That's a lie. This has nothing to do with Judaism. It has to do with Zionism and apartheid. Now, in all of these Muslim countries, there are not only there's an Islamic revival, there are Islamic movements, organized groups. And these Islamic movements have a good reputation. One, they provide services for the people, social services for the people, and they do it better than the government because the governments that are supported by the United States, they're pocketing the money. And groups like, yes, Hamas, and yes, Hezbollah, and other types of groups like those, they engage in social services, orphanages, hospitals, clinics, schools for the people. And not only that, but they have a reputation for being not corrupt, honest, upright. And not only that, but they have a reputation for standing and being militant towards the enemies of the people. So social services, a reputation to be, for character, good moral character, and a willingness to confront the enemies. That's why they have respect. So these Islamic movements are in every Muslim country. The United States, the apartheid state, do not want these Islamic movements to graduate to Islamic revolutions. And once they graduate to Islamic revolutions, they become Islamic governments. And once they become Islamic governments, it's really on, y'all. Because we are going to flip this script internationally. We're flipping the script. Kings, they're gone. Do you know it's against the law in Islam to have kings? America gives us kings. Or presidents for life. That's Mubarak. Mubarak said, I'm not a king. I'm just the president for life. And after I die, my son will be president. Those are the type of people who we have in our countries that America supports. But the same type of trajectory that happened in Iran, generally speaking, is taking place in these other countries. Keep your eyes on Egypt. Keep your eyes on Egypt. Slow boil. And as Egypt goes, so goes the Arab world. And the Egyptians said, yeah. But it's kind of true though. It's still kind of true. They don't want these movements to graduate to Islamic revolutions. Islamic revolutions will usher in Islamic governments. Islamic government means that the puppets are gone. Some of the educated people in that country will leave too. They don't want to live under Islamic law. That's why you who are here, you must get this technology. Keep Islam in your heart and get this technology. So when the people who do not want to live under Islamic government leaves and runs away, you go back and you help. This is one of the responsibilities that you have while you're here in the West. The United States knows that when we take power, we are flipping the script. It's going to be about straight up justice. The IMF is in trouble. The World Bank is in trouble. Because see, as Muslims, for our friends, it's against the law to charge interest. It's against the law. Interest is criminal. But it looks legit to y'all because they're wearing white shirts and ties. Charging interest is a criminal act. How do you think the IMF feels about us? How do you think the World Bank feels about the Islamic economic system, where we do not charge interest? How do you think they feel? That they don't like us too much, but we flipping the script. the empire is in trouble.